OPLA. This is the podcast where we talk about One Piece, the version that's on Netflix with real life people reading scripts provided by actors and doing a fine job. And they all deserve fair compensation. And we'll talk about that
Indeed.
A little bit later. A little bit different this week. I'm Steve. Hello. Vero is not here. We're actually not going to talk about the next couple of episodes, but I'm joined by Ed.
OPLA!
OPLA!
I'm
That's going to be our new...
I'm going to toast a glass of ouzo now.
This is...
Back at Alex's wedding all over again.
Yeah, this is us paying tribute to Greek traditions with hopefully not being too culturally insensitive. But Ed, you've brought me something really nice this week in the absence of episode recaps. What do we got on the show today?
Well, Steve, me, Zach, and Steve and Paul got to have a interview with Nic Louie, who is the Senior Vice President of Development for Tomorrow Studios, which is the original, the people who developed the series before it got sold to Netflix. And, they produced the series, and he was instrumental in bringing that forward, and I think ultimately winning them the bid, because other groups were bidding on it. But he's an interesting guy, and he's got a long anime history, and he's obviously very passionate about One Piece, and it was quite the discussion.
Sounds like he was the right man for the job. I'm looking forward to hearing that.
He might be their secret weapon. I'm not sure, but he may be why they got the show in the first place.
Fascinating. What a pitch.
I mean, hopefully he's an interesting dude.
Cool. Before we get into that, though, some exciting news. The Writers Guild of America, the WGA, I hope it's Writers Guild of America. Hopefully I didn't mess it up. I should have just said WGA with some confidence. But the WGA strike is over. They've reached a settlement with the studios, an agreement, I should say, on a new deal. And that means writers could write scripts again for TV and movies. And One Piece is, without an exception, they are now back working on season 2.
Yeah. I mean, I think just in the last couple of days, Matt Owens has been giving quotes in the press. I think there was a story on Deadline about season 2. So, it's coming, and it's apparently quite a bit of work is being done on it already.
That's crazy, considering, just... a few months ago, this hadn't dropped, and no one knew what the reception was going to be like. But I think you should always have some outlines for future seasons planned in advance before you get renewed.
I'll say this here because I'm not sure. I'm not always on this podcast. I will say that I didn't think that. I was one of those people saying 2 seasons maximum. My prediction for the One Piece live action, but as successful as it is, if it continues. It could go on for quite a while if the success at this rate continues or increases. Yeah, that would be. I think it could go on. It could go on.
It's like what, still in like top 10 on Netflix at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I still keep seeing stories about how how many billion minutes or whatever people have watched, and it's encouraging.
Well, hopefully with this new agreement with the Writers Guild, they let Netflix lets the people working on this show know just how well these are doing. There'll be a little bit more transparency.
Is there still an actors strike going on?
SAG is still on strike, but who knows now with the WJ? Maybe it's only a matter of time, and then we might still be we might start hearing a lot more from some of the actors who've been on this show.
Yeah. They're very charming, and they had a lot of content stored up.
Oh yeah, they banked a lot of content.
The
Brazil.
content camel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like that's the only news we have. But it's huge news, though. Mm-hmm. This is
very encouraging.
So, with that, let's get into that interview.
All right.
Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm here with Ed,
Hello.
my co-host. We also have, as always, very special guest translator for One Piece and Shonen Jump and Manga Plus, Stephen Paul.
Hey, that's me.
That's the full title. And our big special guest today, so excited to talk to him, Senior Vice President of Development at Tomorrow Studios, co-executive producer for One Piece, this series on Netflix. Nic Louie is with us today. How's it going, Nick?
Thank you for having me. It's good. I apologize for in advance for any fumbling or stuttering.
We make it. I'm doing it right now. We need it to happen on the show. It's a requirement, and that's fine. So Nick, first of all, our good friend Greg, who's been a part of our show since basically when we started, speaks extremely highly of you and your role, and I trust every word he says. So I am positive that I'm very happy to have you on today. Do you want to first? How did you get into One Piece in the first place?
It's been a long time. I've been I'm sure like all of us. I grew up on anime. Sorry, there we go. I grew up on anime and manga since I was I don't know, 12 or something. And so I first started One Piece, I think, in 2001, something like that. I was renting. Well, you're not supposed to do this, but people back then, if I don't know if anyone remembers this, but so fan subs used to be on VHS tapes.
Oh yeah.
You're not supposed to rent them out, but I've had this store when I was young that was by my high school that was renting them out, and was watching a lot of different shows, and the guy there was like, you got to check out this new show. It's kind of like, he said, it's kind of like a Huck Finn with stretchy powers. And
I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah.
No, I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I watched, actually, I think was the first movie. And then from that point, then was really I was really into and surprised by the animation and story, but coming in, I think, to the movie, had no idea what was happening. And then and then started on the anime, and then eventually got into the manga, and and then I think like a lot of people, for me it was that that Arlong story, kind of like the help me scene, that really made me fall in love with it.
Yeah, I think you may beat all. Steven, when did you start? 2002?
Reading the manga?
Yeah.
That was 99.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But
I always forget. Yeah,
that may be around the time that I first saw the anime, because that was when I first saw it. It was like before you could just watch videos online, and so I had to get it dubbed for me on a VHS tape from someone who, I think they lived in Japan, but they would just rent the videos from the VHS rental store and then dub those and then sell the dubbed copies to people through mail order. And so that was how I first saw
it was like anime. That. It was actually really hard to get or watch any anime. I felt back then, actually reading manga was harder to get than anime, because you really had to be, because the online scene was really nascent, and you had to be really part of groups and things like that to get it. So one of my friends in high school, who's also a hardcore One Piece fan, shout out to Steven if he ever hears this, but he learned Japanese, and so that was his way of being able to read the manga quickly.
We said this in a previous episode. There's too many Stevens.
Yeah.
There needs to be less Stevens. That's really cool. I mean, Ed, you started in 2005, and I started, right? And I started in 2008. So
2007, around then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a completely different. It was a completely different era. There were Yahoo groups and BitTorrent at that point, and
Right.
Yeah, it was a
whatever.
much different, even 5 years difference. It was very different scenario.
The kids these days are very lucky with what they.
Yeah, because I also remember too, if you guys remember, like Anime Expo back then was really small. It was like 12,000, maybe 8,000 people, I think,
Yeah.
back when it was like in Anaheim and Long Beach. And there was like a time when there was one big show and everyone wore costumes and cosplay from that one show.
Mm.
And then now when you go, not only is it huge, but it's really interesting to see so many kind of fans and crowds now repping all sorts of different shows. And they're getting it so quickly since there's so much that is streaming at the same time in both Japan and here that, and they're just very, it seems like fans now are much more fluent and much more kind of watching, much more diverse in terms of their tastes and what they're reading and watching. It's really amazing.
What was your first love anime wise before getting into One Piece?
It was, I think like a lot of people, we all watched a lot of like Dragon Ball when it first came out. When I was young, my mom used to record it in Chinese for me, and hoping that it would teach me more Chinese. But actually, the one that really got me into anime, where I was like starting to really search for it and everything, was Escaflowne.
Oh, nice.
And that was the one where, again, similarly rented from store, and it's like watched it all in one night. And yeah, it was really one where I saw, oh, okay, like anime stories can be really interesting, really different. I think before too, right, when Dragon Ball was first released in the US, so much of it was censored.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
and it was really, you couldn't find it anywhere. I think I was even watching some on like Telemundo because it was uncensored.
Oh, I did the same. Yeah, I did the
Telemundo.
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it was Escaflowne. That was my first one, again, from like watching like these rentals and stuff. Yeah.
So between 2001 and 20, I guess whenever Tomorrow Studios got involved, I think it was 2017. What was
2016.
your 2016? Yeah, I guess it was. What was your journey that led you to your, I guess, your position there today? And yeah.
I guess there are two parts. I guess for the company part, it's just the kind of usual story, I think, for a lot of people in our business. It's just graduated during the recession and like went abroad, tried to figure out things, came back, did an internship, then got, my first job in a management company. And then from there, started working at my current company, working with Marty Adelstein and Becky Clements. And that was probably over 10 years ago now. In terms of One Piece, it was, so actually you're right. Like it was first published in the news, and the first time we actually got the rights was in 2017. So that's right. I think we first started talking with Shueisha and everyone around 2016, and that was when we were already working a little bit in the like Japan and anime space, and we were working with a consultant out there, and we had heard that that there was an opportunity to try for it. It was like the first time that they had ever started kind of hearing pitches or takes or meeting people, because I'm sure, as you guys have heard, they notoriously never wanted it to be made into a live action. I mean, when you're in Japan, no one ever lets you forget Dragon Ball. Like no matter where you go, it doesn't.
I don't
matter
think that's just Japan.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it doesn't matter. You were like didn't work on it. It doesn't matter. It's the different. Like no one lets you forget. Never forget, right? And so we tried for it, and it was sort of in that final situation. I think we were in the final 4 or 3 or something like that. And basically, I think like a lot of fans, and as a fan myself, I was really afraid to try. It seemed like impossible. Like, how did you even do this? Um, and so my first instinct actually was to not do it, but then you have this opportunity. It comes, knocks on your door. Knowing the three other people that were in the finals, kind of thing, they were spending a lot on trying to do sort of, I think, like proof of concepts, like trailer stuff. This is all just stuff I've heard. I've never confirmed it, but it's basically, I know that in all likelihood they probably haven't read it as much as like I've read it. You know what I mean? Like I was purely caught up at that point, and it's a lot to catch up on if you have never read it before. And I think it's interesting too that even now, some of my like coworkers who are new into One Piece, it's like the things that they attach to or highlight or remember is kind of interesting to see how it's different than me, like having grown with it versus someone coming in and just binging it from start to finish at this point.
Yeah.
But all that aside is just kind of it was like an opportunity that just too hard to say no to, and it's that kind of shared feeling too, because I've heard Matt say this before too, that it's if someone's going to ruin it, might as well be me. Like someone is going to make this, and why not then at least if I try or if I take part in it, then at least had some sort of agency or say, or at least I know it's someone, at least I've like gone through and it's something very close to me. And so that's when we first started the conversation. And I think the big thing at that moment that we really sold the team on is, I think everyone was trying for movies and big budget and stuff. And I think at the core basically said, you cannot fit everything into a movie. It's impossible. You cannot get the characterization. You cannot get the amount of story and world building that you need for One Piece, because One Piece is so long and there's so much myth and world building and all that. And so we just kind of painted the picture, what can this be? What can this look like in TV? And at that time, Game of Thrones was still, they were like season 5 or 6. It was all very, this kind of really big budget premium television was very new. And it's saying that if they could do it, I really think we can do it. I think in the way that they have these really big iconic moments, and the show is different than the book series. I think we can kind of build a strategy like that too, where we maintain the spirit and we hit these moments like Zoro on the cross, like Luffy giving his hat to Nami, and hit those kind of really big, emotional, memorable moments. And while some of the way we get there might be a little bit different because of the realities of television, we will hit those key moments, and then from there, kind of painted, what it could look like over multiple seasons, how a show could work, and basically that was our pitch.
That's interesting that you mentioned Game of Thrones, because I think that specifically Eiichiro Oda seeing Game of Thrones, well, that was one of the things that convinced him, like, hey, maybe TV is a viable, adaptation of this thing, of seeing particularly like the, just the effects and the stuff that you could do with CG to help sell all the, the illusion of the fantasy world and stuff. So I imagine if that was, part of the pitch, that probably helps, sell it to him.
He was a little lucky. I would say the other thing too that we're saying based off of Game of Thrones is, like when you go back and you look at Game of Thrones, it's actually relatively tame in season 1 versus like season 4 and 5. All of a sudden they have dragons flying for no reason, just because they're just throwing money at it. And I was saying that I think though too, to our benefit of One Piece, if you start at the beginning, I feel it's relatively manageable. where you don't have as much of the big powers that a lot of us now in terms of reading current chapters that we think of. But when you think back, it's actually the places they visited, the villains all felt much more like it's hard, but it could be done.
Mhm.
Still wacky and cartoony, but it's not completely insane as it gets.
Tone is a challenge, but yeah, in terms of like how do you like effects and stuff like that,
yeah. I think when I remember hearing that it was going to be a television series was like the first. I like when we originally heard it. I think we all had the same feeling you probably did, where it's like how could something like this be made? And I think we mentioned this on some of our other interviews as well. Like the worst case scenario from our end as fans is that new people get into the series, whether it's good or it's not, they're going to be exposed to it. And I think the fact that it was a TV series was the first good news, I think, that came out of that. Do you know if the other pitches were all TV series, or was that unique to Tomorrow's Studios?
I think it was unique to us, but I'm not completely sure, because you think back then too, TV was really starting to, like, Game of Thrones was a really big thing. Like TV was starting to open up more.
Yeah.
And so like 7 years ago. And so it's just it was a very different environment.
I'm trying to remember 2016,
but I think it's also the fact too of us also trying to I'm sure the other pitches weren't able to talk about like the current arcs and stuff like that. I would say too, as toward what you were saying in terms of introducing it, I think that's always really my hope as someone who loves anime and manga, was to just really to open the door, because I've always felt that, especially as we grew up, it's, anime was always this weird thing, and to people, and for whatever reason, even though, Marvel's huge, people always kind of pushed anime to the side and said that, particularly in our industry, like, oh, it's weird, or oh, it can't be adapted, oh, the audience won't, like, anime fans don't want to watch it, or all this kind of stuff, or reasons for why it's, for lack of a better term, they act like it's inferior. And I think I've always had that kind of chip on my shoulder as someone, and I don't know if it's the same for you guys, as kind of like anime fans. And it's like, I wanted to show that this medium is as good as any other kind of fictional medium out there, and it is just a medium with so many different stories. And if Marvel and DC and comics can do it, there's no reason why like anime shouldn't be held at the same level as a novel, or as a play, or as a comic, at least from this kind of entertainment standpoint.
Yeah, it's been our goal with this show from the beginning to do that. And you mentioned the amount of cosplayers at conventions for just one series. Like Ed, back in 2009 when we went to conventions, there was one guy in
the first convention we went to, and there was like 3 cosplayers, and one of them was a child dressed as Chopper.
Wow.
Like, a small child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not many.
It was a good outfit. But yeah, no, it's just so, I think I couldn't have in my wildest dreams have imagined where One Piece is today in 2023, even in 2016 and 2017. Yeah.
I really enjoy seeing kind of the reactions of, especially the non-fans, or all the posts of people saying they watched it with their parents, or
I was going to say, I've heard
a lot of that.
All the moms are really loving it. So I don't know, what are you able to say about what was in your pitch, and I guess specifically how did your fandom of One Piece specifically contribute to what you wanted to put together in a One Piece series?
I think it's in terms of what I think, as coming from someone who read or new One Piece. It was more about conveying the spirit of it, like trying to understand or convey that you want to show, you want to be true or faithful to what One Piece is about, right? And it's not about necessarily saying specifically like Luffy should say this, or I think that it, or because I'm not the writer per se, uh, or at all. I'm not the writer, so it's not. So it's going to, I know like our job as a producer is really to be the creative partner, and we oversee all the steps of the project from its very beginning, right, of getting the property to the very end, all the way through post and all the way into marketing and release, and repeat the cycle. So it's not like we don't actually put out which at that point what scene we want it to be exactly, but what we can do is say, be that person to protect the creative integrity of the project, to make sure that the things that we want, and also that perhaps the creators, right, Holzer, Shueisha may want to see, that we can work together and make sure those things appear and try to guide and advise through the process, because the process is very, very long. And there's a lot of things throughout the life cycle of the project that I think unless you've experienced it, you just don't know. You can't know like what to expect or how things change. It's kind of like one of those things too, I think, in working together, where they talk about too, like kind of coming to terms with cultural differences, but also in terms of the medium differences, where and I think Oda mentioned this in a letter, the idea of where sometimes on the page, you, without the experience behind it, you may read something very literally, and you see that a lot with people's reactions when like the script leaked or whatever. I don't know which one it was, but but people will judge things because they don't really know what it's going to be, and it's no fault on them. They just don't know how it works. And then and then to the point when they see it, and then on the screen, seeing the actor come into it, seeing Inaki embody it, and then there's the point of, oh, okay, I see what you guys were trying to do, you know what I mean? And then it builds this bridge of trust. And so it's more about, I think, again, understanding and sort of building that line of trust that, this is how we envision it, and this is what we want, and this is the essence of it, and trying to promise that we're going to, stick to that and do whatever we can to make sure the project moves forward and is the best it can be.
I'm curious now, as a VP of development, like on in a more specific sense, like what are some of the things that you were individually responsible for, or what are the ways that you interacted with the project that you could maybe point to and say, oh, I did this, or I helped do that. I'm really curious.
We're there every point. There is we're involved in from outlines to scripts to picking the writers, filling the room, to picking directors, to picking department heads, like literally everything.
How could this take 7 years?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say. I can say it, but yeah,
okay,
it's very long.
How, so I'll ask maybe in a more general way, what was the process like for you, especially for something that you've been a fan of since 2000, for 30 plus years, or 20 plus years, however long it's been. How was it for you to kind of put this team together to work on something like this?
It's both great, memorable, but at the same time, terrifying, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's part of it is, I think, knowing it's part of the job, you know what I mean? And you kind of have to just pick and do the best you can on formulating to make the best show you can, right? Um, I guess more to it, to kind of answer your question in like a more roundabout way. So I would say, there's never any just one person on a project, right? Like TV is a very collaborative medium. There's a lot of different people on this, and I again don't think we could make a show like this without the help of every single person, and that goes all the way from from all the writers for sure, who are putting in all the work to really make the show that we have, to the directors, to sound mixing, to color, to like all the accounting, you know what I mean? Like everybody. It takes a lot of people. And I would say to one of the big things of um, doing a show like this is everything that fans talk about online, every question they have, everything that may have been changed, we debated it endlessly. No decision was ever made casually or just for the hell of it. You know what I mean? We debated every single point, um, probably more than anyone can ever know. And I think one of the greatest pleasures of doing this as a fan is like all the people who are able to start introducing it to the non-fans, or having those talks with their loved ones, their partners, their parents, their kids, is also being able to have a conversation with some of my coworkers, like my bosses, Marty and Becky, to be able to have like a real conversation, do you know what I mean? Like about Luffy as a character,
Mhm.
and being able to talk about some of these story points uh, with that level of seriousness, like of what would Luffy do, or how does he react, or what's his perspective in this moment, or even the smallest details of each story, or do you talk about future sort of lore and things that happen, or foreshadowing. I think that's a lot of fun, and that's probably one of the best parts, because when I can talk to Marty and Becky, and I see them reading the manga really deeply, I think that gives me the biggest smile. And I also love, I think the first time I met Matt too, um, it was really that kind of like all blue moment when like Sanji and Luffy are talking in the broadcast. You know how it's like drawn differently, like how their like eyes are
Yeah.
wider and everything
Mhm.
as they were talking. We really, I think, had that kind of like connection, shared dream moment of like this is what we want to do, and that kind of understanding of wanting something bigger for anime, and what we could do with One Piece and all that potential kind of thing.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
Was there
Stephen
a
had yeah.
Yeah, was there a particular moment that you remember where you felt like, oh my God, like this is actually happening, like this is all coming together, it's going to be a show, like we have something here?
I would say the first time was getting ordered.
Mm.
That
Mhm.
was the first time we got ordered. You have to understand, we went through a really long
Mhm.
like development process before that, and there were ups and downs. And it was that was the first time where we're like, because all the way up until that point, you're not really a show. You're not a
Mhm.
show until you've really been ordered or you go into production. And so that was the first time where we kind of felt like, not let alone like whether the show does well or not. That was really the moment of, oh, we're going to make this.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
it's been really nice seeing Netflix get behind it so much as well, and I think they've really done a good job in pushing it out.
Yeah, that was also, I feel we owe a great deal to that team, to everyone over at Netflix as well. Yeah, I was, that's not always the case, and I feel
Mhm.
very fortunate that that they were so strongly behind us.
Yeah. I even, I mean, I don't know how much you know or can say even, but is there something in particular that caught Netflix's attention with One Piece, beyond just the built-in fan base that exists?
I would say more it's, for whatever reason, they watched it and they really got behind it. They really liked it. They really believed in the show. And we owe a great lot to our execs, too, who really championed the show, who've been championing it for years, even through some of the dark days. And that's not an easy thing to do. And, they always stood up for us. And I think part of, and I apologize for saying this so much, but I think part of the luck was really, you do have to have everyone on the same page to make something like this, where everyone is behind it, kind of 100%. It's always tough when you have maybe a great show, but you maybe don't have the support of one part or another, like whether it's be marketing or the network. So I just think we're very fortunate, because that was they really believed in it, and they liked the product.
And One Piece has a lot of moving parts with a lot of very big personalities, I'm sure, involved. Shueisha, Netflix, you guys, the actual production.
Oda himself.
I was going to ask, so how was it going from a fan to working with Oda?
It was really great. It was I don't know how much we're allowed to say, really. It's just, he's amazing.
I meant personally,
Yeah.
like, I guess I'm not like asking for specific anecdotes or
he's amazing. He's a visionary. He's he always focuses on kind of really the emotions of the characters. He always comes from a really great kind of creative place, and I think a big part that I really appreciate in working with him and Shueisha is that they were willing to go up to bat and to really work together in terms of meeting whatever the note or quality that they wanted to hit. You know what I mean? Like they would, rather than kind of dismiss something that they were feeling, they would really try to explain it, and we go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth until it felt right and everyone was feeling good about it. And I know that was probably hard for them as well, because sometimes process of that can be frustrating, but I'm glad that they met us there, and that I think they said this in the very beginning too, the group of I'm sure that after this it'll be the best version it can be at the end, kind of like a forge in a way, right? You just go back and forth. And I really in looking at it now, it's like, yeah, I completely agree, and I'm glad they stuck with it.
Yeah, I think when we spoke to Steve Maeda, I think also like just the idea that it's an adaptation and it's not just a direct copy of the manga or the anime, I think does give you liberties to do something different while also hitting those emotional core points, which is so difficult to do in 8 episodes.
They were very good, I would say, at gut checking in terms of talking about, what is the essence of the chapter, and really making sure that we hit that. And I think, again, I think sometimes people are talking about whether in viewing, whether it's hit or not. And I would say, we did try to really hit the that whatever the essence of that arc is for each grouping. And I give an example too, because it's so interesting as we this is something, I guess, going back to your question about coming in as a fan. There are a lot of interesting things where there was a bit of a difference in, one, how I may or we may read an arc and interpret it versus how someone else may read or interpret, or versus some American reader versus, you know, a Japanese reader, due to translation and etc. And so, like, one of the things I was told is that, and Stephen, you can correct me if wrong, but one of the things I was told is that, as we were doing Ghoul Roger, is that in the original translation, it doesn't actually say I left it all in one piece. It actually says I left it all there.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I see sometimes remarks about, oh, they didn't do the line, but that's ultimately because canon, you know, or the words are the words basically.
Yeah.
Or we also saw with a friend that in some versions, you know, we felt like Kuina has a little bit of like a snappiness or like an attitude, right, in the English. And then I talked to a friend from Taiwan and a friend in Japan, and to them they said, no, that's not true. They said to them, Kuina seemed much more like a mature kind of like older sister, kind of like just beyond Zoro. And so I thought that was really interesting, just like in this difference of, you know, the way we read it from an American point of view versus the way I guess they're reading in Asia is just different.
And I mean, Stephen, as you could attest, the translation since 2003, whenever it started coming out,
Yeah.
has gone through so many different people and so many
Sure.
different
That
editorial
too.
decisions, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, and also some people first watched it with 4Kids or with
Right.
the Funimation dub or fan subbed, as we
Right.
mentioned, or
I was
just
surprised
read
by
it.
people who didn't know about Zeph's leg. I find that really interesting. I just
Yeah, because that wasn't in the
never
anime.
thought about that. Yeah.
I didn't know that until later than I'd like to say. Just because
they've kept it consistent. I was watching some Whole Cake Island episodes recently, and they redid the whole flashback, and it's still, you know, it gets cut off by the anchor.
Interesting.
I mean, it's just, yeah, we could talk about that another time.
Yeah.
Steve and Ed, I want to suck up the oxygen if you have more questions.
I guess I'm curious because I'm sure that, you know, there was a long period of like sort of pitching different, you know, ideas for how to handle, you know, these stories, like, you know, what are different angles, because it's not, you know, like everybody knows, it's not going to be a 1-to-1 copy of the original source material. That the, you know, the realities of producing TV and the fact that, you know, the writers that have to be able to come up with their own creativity and new angles to the material. And so I'm curious if there was anything that you remember as like, you know, either you know, you had a pitch for like this certain character to appear, and they ultimately didn't work out in what, you know, became the finished season, or if there were certain like you know, takes on different characters or different events that you look back on now that the everything's in the bag, and you look back on and you think like, oh man, I wish we could have had this, or I wish we could have gotten this character in, or something like that.
I would say not so much that I wish that we had that character in, or, you know, I stand by our show. There are things that everything was made, you know, for a reason or another. I would say we did start. I would give we there were some moments where I think we maybe where it was just a matter of changing back and forth. Like there was, for example, we in one version we did have a fishman in the first episode because we wanted to. I think from a non-fan point of view, we just wanted to seed the idea that fishman exists. Because if all of a sudden you only saw Arlong at the end, you'd be like, "What is this?
Yeah.
Like, where did this come from?" And that was something that that we debated a lot, and I think from the Shueisha side, it was something that we talked a lot, and they thought was too early to go in with it. And so ultimately, that became the maitre d in Bratier,
Right.
because it was to a similar effect. You know, we just wanted to say that fishmen are a part of this world. I think there are, in terms of, let me think back, there were let me rethink of it, because you were saying like whether there are things that we wish we had done or things that we could have changed.
I think Steven said, like, mentioned Gaimon, right? Like that whole episode, was something that wasn't going to really be in the cards ultimately, but that he wished that was something they could have done if given enough time.
I would say there were so many different we tried a lot of different things. I mean, I remember he talked a little bit about Hachi, which I'll say, the Angry Fish Band is not meant to be Hachi, for anyone wondering. That's
okay, good. I'm glad. I also will
hopefully be corrected. That was just a mistake, because in versions where we had Hachi, basically, like it got swapped when we couldn't do Hachi. I mean, there are things like where we just couldn't do it. I mean, we talked about doing Gaimon before. We had a version of that too, but that was a completely different series.
To be fair, I don't know how you would be able to do that with the 8 episode.
Yeah, because there are real limits. Like we had a version,
a webisode.
We had a version 2 of Krieg, of it being that whole fight and everything, but it was just so, like, in total, it was just so absurdly expensive. And I think ultimately too, as we were trying to problem solve, it just worked. The story structure was also a little bit weird to have this giant battle in the middle, and it ended up just working better with Arlong there. There's just so many different things, because I think a lot of, like, George R. R. Martin talks about before, like, legitimate changes. And it's one of those things of whether you try to make adjustments due to the limitations of the medium and for the structure and budget and etc. And I think there's so much we would love to do, but you just can't. I would say, out of some original stuff, though, I'm sure you guys probably have heard the whole story before, but the Mr. Seven scene was an original one that stuck from the beginning, and that whole thing, definitely Matt can tell the story, because this is a really great story, but that was one that he plucked from his, like, encyclopedic mind of One Piece, to the point where even the Shueisha side was surprised that they had that character.
And looked a little less wacky than the SBS. Ed, sorry.
Right. But if you guys ever seen it, he definitely ask him that story. Yeah.
Oh, I hope to. Yeah.
I was gonna say, with season 2 being greenlit so far, what you see as the challenges are going forward for season 2, or anything unique about the content that you'll be tackling there, or if you don't.
So down to earth, though, Ed. I can't imagine there being any.
Yeah.
I can't talk too much about two, but it's something we're continue to work on. I would say challenges. I think everyone knows the challenges. It's definitely going to be bigger, but I would say that, to the best of our ability, we try not to cut out things from an arc standpoint.
I'll say the one thing I'm learning from speaking to people in the last few weeks and months involved in the live action production and learning a lot more about television, they should give you guys more money and more episodes.
Yeah, right.
I think I'm learning. It's, give One Piece all the money, and then we won't have to worry about anything being cut. I guess that being said, is there anything wildest dreams, not like actually literally done, that are there any story beats either in season 2 or beyond that you really hope that you'd be able to adapt, you personally?
I would love to be able to do Ines Lobby for that story moment that everyone loves, as I'm sure everyone knows. But I could see a world, or in a pie in the sky, like fantasy, if we could have anything we want, I'd love to do like in the future. I feel like you could do a Marineford movie or something like that. Like some of these
Yeah.
really big events
Mhm.
in One Piece, I feel like you could do in a like really spectacular way, because it's all fighting and like people coming together. I don't know how we would do that, or if we, like when if we have the fortune to keep going that long. But I think that would be a lot of fun,
Yeah. I feel like that would have to be a movie because the budget
right?
for that would have to be really insane.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
then you would have this big event, especially if you've
Yeah.
been watching the series up
Mhm.
to that point.
That
Uh,
would be a lot of fun in theaters. I've seen a lot of One Piece movies in theaters, and I know how rowdy it could get. I'm sure that would be a lot of fun. I should have asked
yeah,
that question because now I want to see that, and
that's something I've actually kind of wondered. Is that's something from like a more general standpoint? Is I do wonder from like a TV standpoint if we reach the point, because when you see a lot of sort of anime and things, it is very much the series, the movie kind of supported, even though they're side stories. And I did kind of wonder if in this new kind of streaming world, if you could do that.
yeah, with
But
Netflix
who knows?
particularly, I know. Well, I mean, during the pandemic, certainly they had movies coming out on streaming simultaneously.
Yeah.
With I think a lot of the things with movies and the anime and the manga for One Piece is that you can't really expect someone to keep up with a canon that switches mediums. But with
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Netflix, at least the canon that you're all creating, you could potentially do a full big budget movie if you wanted to in the future, and
Yeah,
also
but who
release that on
knows?
Netflix.
If
I'm not
everyone,
putting
if everyone
pressure
keeps supporting us for
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
the years to come, who knows?
Yeah, it's only season 1, and it seems to have been doing. I mean, I'll ask this: has the reaction been what you expected, or beaten your expectations, or I guess over time your expectations probably have changed tremendously.
Mm.
But like, what have you thought of the reaction to the series?
No, I mean I'm a ball of anxiety, so it was really great.
Welcome to the club.
It was very, yeah, exactly. It was a relief, and it was very exciting, and was better than I had hoped. And I'm glad so many people are finding One Piece and are loving the show. I think that's some of the greatest stuff, is just seeing people's reactions and people's analysis and thoughts. And I think no matter what, it always does come from like a place of interest and love. And it's just really interesting to hear everyone's speculation and the way people interpret things. Cause again, like everyone sees it a little differently.
Yeah.
I've learned that. Yeah.
Fan response has certainly been persistent. It's been long lasting at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a
wood,
live action
yeah.
fan base since way before the series came out.
Well,
Mhm.
but I mean, sometimes things drop on Netflix, but this really made an impact.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like
Yeah,
people people continue to talk about it, and people are on their multiple rewatches. They're very enthusiastic.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't necessarily planned this way, but I do feel like while there were folks who were definitely on board, from the fan side where we see it all happening, there were definitely some folks who were on board all the way, from the beginning. But I feel like as it got closer and we started seeing, the stills and set pictures
trailers.
and then the teasers and trailers and so on, it did feel like the fan reaction, it was like it started off at a certain level and then it got higher and higher, like as they saw more of it, more and more
The
people
cast,
were
I'd say,
sold on it. Yeah.
particularly. Yeah.
And then by the time it came out, it was just like this big crest of excitement, and I didn't necessarily see it happening that way, so that was very exciting.
Yeah, I'm glad, and I hope we make those people proud. I think it's also really interesting the number of non-fans that are surprised by the Garp reveal, and they also seem so surprised by the Zoro Mihawk battle, by like the end of the Zoro Mihawk battle.
I've also heard they're surprised that they don't find the One Piece at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
Which we
And
always hate to say.
a lot of people surprised by Luffy's stretchy powers in the beginning.
I think that's really cool that you can make those extremely. We were talking about with Steven, like they happened in the early 2000s. A lot of these things, or Luffy's stretching power happened in '97. It's like, wow, you can make a 26-year-old thing a spoiler is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because you think that people would be going in expecting it, but they're just like blown away.
I mean, it's. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of just the mountain that it is to climb to appease both the fans that have been very aware of all of those things and the fans that are surprised by that.
I also think it's funny the number of people that thought Gold Roger would escape in the beginning. I've seen so many
haven't heard.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of reaction videos of just people thinking from the very top, like, "Oh, he's gonna Jack Sparrow it."
This is us in our bubble, I guess. We're not hearing those fans. Yeah. Sorry, I'm still thinking of Gold Roger doing that. Stephen, Ed, did you have any other questions?
No,
I could ask our usual questions.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So we ask all our guests some very basic questions that there's only one right answer to all of them. First, who is your favorite Straw Hat?
Luffy.
Okay, that is the right
No
answer,
hesitation.
I think. No, I like it. I think you're one of the first people who did not hesitate at all with that question. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's like picking my children."
I mean, more people say Luffy than you might think, but it really should be more. When we ask.
Yeah. Luffy's my answer. Maybe that's why I'm a little subjective about that. Who's your favorite?
You mean like as a character, right?
Yeah. Or in any of the mediums, and
for sure. I mean, it just that's the most, I think. I mean, the most inspirational thing of it's follow your dreams. Why can't it be me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't think Luffy ever doubted that it would be him. Or it's been once, and that maybe will happen in that movie we were talking about at the end. Who is your favorite non-Straw Hat?
Sounds tougher. I'm trying to think.
There's not that many characters. I don't really.
Probably Odin.
Good answer too. Yeah. Do you want to talk about why Odin?
Oh, it's just the whole meant to be boiled, that whole scene, and dancing in the streets naked. I just really enjoyed it. I don't know, I just really enjoyed that story.
I'd be super curious how a live action would do Wano, but we'll see in 2046 when that happens.
Yeah, he's like holding them all above his head.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That seems doable in live action. Who is your favorite antagonist?
Off, like, just in the moment. I don't know if this counts. But Aokiji.
Yeah, that's.
Well, I mean,
I'm very,
that counts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very excited to see what happens. Yeah.
Are you're caught up to the latest chapter?
If not the latest, then one behind.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm unofficial.
There wasn't one the week we recorded this, so yeah, it's been a couple weeks.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's kind of your fault there haven't been a lot of chapters in the last
all of us break.
Send all your no that Kuzan is probably at the top of mine too, so good
but
all
I don't
correct
know
answers.
if he will be or will not be though.
That's what makes him great though, is that you have no idea. Also, he has a great outfit. Although his current one is just like pirate outfit, right? But he has those cool sunglasses. Anyway, I think the last one is, what is your favorite story arc in the series?
Oh, mine's too basic. It would definitely be the Arlong one, just because that was the one that got me into
That's
it.
not basic. That's coming from someone who got
fine.
into this when you did. Yeah, I think that's a good answer.
Yeah, that's the one that really laid it all.
I guess the last thing I wanted to ask was just you mentioned a little bit about getting Marty and Becky into the series and seeing their interest. How I mean, how has it been? I guess if you could expand more upon it, it's just like, how has it been getting your colleagues into One Piece, not just because they have to work on it?
I think that's the greatest thing. I really love just getting more people into it, being able to really talk to people about it. And I think that's for really any anime. As long as I think when you can share your interest with someone and be able to have those kind of conversations and talk about all the different characters and events, and I think that's really the best feeling. And some of the because who would have thought, when you first read One Piece, to be able to actually talk about it, like, I don't know, as if you were in like from an analytical point of view, or critical reading, kind of like as if it was a class or something, And I think that's also been part of the fun in making, is, as you talk about, like the privilege of being able to talk with the people behind the manga and learn more about intent or little details and things that I may not have gotten if I wasn't part of it. And same with even sometimes because I don't read Japanese or speak Japanese, to be able to hear those kind of tidbits from people like with you guys, with Steven, with Greg, and like hearing people like point out, that the word for sun by the fish people is written in katakana. Like, that's really fascinating, and that's something you don't get when we're reading it in English. And so all those kind of little pieces just really make it even more richer, I guess, and more enriching.
If you'd be good at any One Piece trivia, I think, at this point, since you've taken the PhD course in One Piece.
No way. Thank you. Yeah.
If you ever come back, we'll
sometimes too, like sometimes Matt mentions things and I like have to go check like what did that happen? Yeah.
There was something else I was gonna mention.
Yeah.
No, I completely
Fire
forgot.
away.
No, I completely forgot now. If you ever want to, oh no, go ahead.
What's your guys' least favorite arc?
Oh, I'm glad.
Oh boy.
Published?
Well, we did a
Dressrosa.
No, we did a survey.
Ranking,
yeah, we did a survey ranking.
Wait, I could actually tell you what, if you want to wait.
Was it Syrup Village? Was that
It might have been. I think
it might have been.
For me, it was. I think because I first encountered that arc in the anime and did not care for that.
Yeah, the anime is not great. I will say, and this is the first, I think one of the first things I said coming out with the live action is that I thought the version of Syrup Village in the live action was much better. I really enjoyed the twist on it. I mean, it's like, in a way, it's completely different. I mean, with some of the same characters. But
thank you. That's a good take.
I really enjoyed that.
It's a good take from the team, yeah.
I think if you're going to completely change one arc, I feel like that's not a bad choice.
Yeah. I mean, the flip side of, people who get anxiety about, oh no, what are they going to change from the thing that I love, is you can also get the chance to see something familiar in a completely different context, or in a completely different treatment, where it's like, oh wow, I never thought of it, of Syrup Village as like a as like almost like a horror movie kind of thing.
I never would have. Syrup Village was the lowest on our collective list. And you put Twin Capes Whiskey Peak, which is just the wrong answer for. Steven, you put Orange Town, which.
Okay.
I don't know. I missed the shoo stuff, but also that's a story that's been done in movies and is a real story, so I get that.
Syrup Village. Hats off to our writing team. Yeah, that was really inspired, I think, to do it as a horror. Like the first time hearing that, it was like, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think my comment to my wife was like, I didn't really expect it to become kind of like a horror show. That's not really One Piece. That's not what I think of when I think of One Piece immediately. Even Thriller Bark, the horror arc, is really more of a comedy. Yeah, like exactly. I mean, it's hilarious.
One thing I love Yeah, one thing I give credit to the team for, like, that I really love, that's a really hard needle to thread, is taking Buggy and making him very threatening in the beginning, and then kind of managing to make him that kind of joke character, like it's done in the manga, and kind of in a way that fits the show. I thought that was really great. Like, that was a really interesting move by them, and very kind of masterfully done. Yeah.
We spoke to Mark Yopes too about Buggy and just the crazy fan reaction, particularly to Buggy, which reminds me of my question that
Jeff,
I'll ask after. Is just how I kind of always had him. He's what's the Peter principle? He's fails upwards, and how I don't think that was completely laid in the manga at the beginning, but you could completely feel it in the live action with hindsight. Particularly like, oh, this is the guy that's going to fail upward.
He really hit it. Yeah. to everyone from with Jeff Ward, and also the writers, and Sam and putting it in. Yeah.
This helped me stall for enough time to ask the question that I forgot originally. You mentioned at least one or two things that aren't true. Like, I think the Hachi thing, that the angry fisherman was not Hachi. Are there any fan theories out there that you could just squash right now? Let's set people straight.
I think we encourage all speculation.
Except the Hachi thing.
And fans are allowed to speculate. That one's more of a mistake, though.
Yeah. I should say, are there any mistakes, I guess, people are making?
You can't keep track of everything.
Right.
And,
no.
We try, though. That one is definitely, that shouldn't have been. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say the other way around, or is there any fan speculation that you've really surprised people found or picked up on, or?
I was surprised that more people didn't catch on to the Gum Gum Fruit box, like to the idea, because I really liked that kind of thing of. Because I think when we were doing this, like, we had just learned really the origins of the fruit, and I really liked how it's kind of colored in very, very subtly, from Shanks talking about the Marines and to seeing the box too. But I think other details, I think most people catch most of them. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones, but this fan base is, one of the best at terms of searching, like, for every kind of Easter egg and stuff like that. Yeah.
The One Piece fandom is notoriously good at that.
Yeah. Are there any other ones, or like ones that you or wondering about?
Why is the one that comes to mind that the person is almost definitely an extra, the crocodile thing. I won't ask you to confirm or deny that, though. I think everyone wants to live in their own headcanon for that.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to ruin people's headcanons. I can't think of anything offhand. I don't know, Stephen Rand.
I got nothing.
Yeah, okay. I could hear the listeners screaming their particular theory somehow through my headphones. I think that's it, though. I don't want to keep you too long either, Nick.
No, thank you.
Yeah. A pleasure having you on. If you ever want to come on to talk about the latest chapter or anything, you're always welcome.
Thank you.
Just to talk about One Piece, if you just need to vent about something. You
don't get enough at your job.
Yeah, exactly. If there's no one that you could really talk about what happened to Shanks in the latest chapter, whatever it is, you can. I think that's it. But Nick, is there anything in particular you want people to know about that you do or that you're working on, or?
No, I appreciate it, and thank you so much for having me and leading me through this. And it was a real pleasure. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great to have you on. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. All right. See you guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
Bye.
That's been OPLA, the podcast talking all about the live action version of the kooky, cool anime badass pirates manga as well.
It's totally off the
Show.
wall and super serious and realistic at the same time.
Yes,
It's
amazing
emotionally
how-
realistic.
Yeah, tonally, One Piece is just all over the place these days, but depending on your perception. But yeah, Ed, Zach, I would like to thank Zach, Ed, and Steven for interviewing this week and providing you all with some more interesting tales of the One Piece live action production. I guess we just tell the people where they could find us.
Sure.
Ed's an expert at this.
Yeah. Let's see. When the podcast, when the recaps are coming back, where are you guys at now?
We'll be doing 5 and 6, which is like the Baratier portion.
Ah, all right. I'm sure everyone's excited to talk about Taz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of Tasmaniacs around here.
All right. For the podcast, you can find us at onepiecepodcast.com, twitter.com, youtube.com. Actually, it's Instagram.com, Facebook, and we're on Blue Sky. Yeah.
No, we're not on Facebook. We're not on Facebook
We're not on
anymore.
Facebook either. We're on Instagram and YouTube, and we're also on Blue Sky. So, One Piece Podcast. I think it's just onepiecepodcast.com at Blue Sky. This is the way Zach has it set up. But you are,
Yeah, it's kooky over there.
you're Steve Yurko on all your socials.
Yes.
SteveYurko.com.
And you are.
I'm Edward E. Just check me out on Blue Sky. edwarde.bsky.app. Yeah, that's the one I'll go with. That's good. It's a podcast. You can subscribe on SoundCloud, subscribe on iHeartRadio, subscribe on not Discord, Spotify. What did I say? Discord. You can
Geez, Zach gets you at your best, and then when I get you, you're like, I don't know.
I tried to do Blue Sky, and it messed up my whole flow.
Are we on Stitcher?
Stitcher. Wow.
Let's see.
Yeah, but you can subscribe.
OnePiecePodcast.com.
Yeah. Subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, please.
Apple Podcasts as well. Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, if you're listening to this show, I think you already know the main show.
Yeah.
But somehow, if you found this before the main show, I assure you, we got this in the bag. We know how to do this on a weekly basis. But our live action podcast is a little more unconventional in structure, and this week being no exception. Once again, thanks to Zach, Steven, to Ed as well. Thank you, Nic Louie, for coming on the show, and we'll see you on the next one. Until then, my name is Steve.
My name is Ed.
We'll see you then.
We'll see you then.
Later.
Have a week.